guys. Well, those of you watching the recording, there's a couple of things that welcome, number one. Number two, you just missed my theme song playing. I don't think you're going to hear it on if I did it on the recording, so you're going to have to just get on another live one. The other thing you're not going to get to see is the poll. Those that are on live get to participate in the poll. And one of the great things I love about the webinar feature are the polls. I mean, if I'm not going to do a poll, I'm not going to do a webinar. If I'm going to do a webinar, it's because I want the polls. The polls are so critical, and I only have one today so far. I might write one in the middle of our talk. So just a quick housekeeping thing. Everybody hear me? Everybody cool? Or should I put my headset in kind of thing? Sometimes it's a little reverberating. Can you just give me a chat, you guys? And say, you sound great, you look awesome. I feel like I'm in the middle of a movie set. Okay, I'm not gonna put this in then. It's just too distracting. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, so thank you for being on. Honestly, this is really as much for me, maybe more, because I really want to have lots of opportunities to articulate this principle that I'm writing about. So I'm writing and talking. It's so good for me. In fact, I'm recording and then writing because I'm an external processor. So I don't really know what I think until I speak. Any of you agree with that? I'm going to keep my glasses on. Thank you, Lucy. What I would like for you to do is, if you have a question, instead of putting it in chat, I would really like, because what happens with chat for me, in fact, I was debating about even disabling chat, but what I debate about with chat is that it's distracting to people, or that, everyone's like, oh yeah, and then everyone's like, wait, they're reading what was written and not listening and following whatever it was saying. And especially in this early stuff, I want to really make sure I lay the groundwork about what this principle is all about, how it works, and play it out. I do actually have maybe I'll just use that. I have a PowerPoint that I did at my event. I can kind of use that. I think I might do that. But if you have a question, instead of putting it in chat, will you just put it in the question box? And I'm the only one that sees that. I won't answer it immediately. I'm going to go to the questions, at a time. But I'm not going to. The only thing I think about not doing my full PowerPoint thing with it, it's that it's too long. Like at my event, it took most of the morning to lay the groundwork. But the bottom line is this, and I am going to just share my screen and go directly to, this is the crux of, no, I'm not going to go there yet. I'm going to lay the groundwork first a little bit. I have never, ever worked with anyone, talked to them, coached them. All my life, I have been like a psychologist or an anthropologist. Like, I love learning how people think, how I think. I don't really go to what they're thinking more than I do how they're thinking. That's just how it feels like that's always been me. Probably it wasn't, but that's how it feels today, is that I always go, instead of getting into the weeds about what they're thinking or saying, I have learned to go to that's an interesting thing. It's an interesting way why you think that or why you feel that way. Instead of combating, no, believe me, I was in the weeds for a long time. That's what has gotten me to this point, is the weeds don't accomplish anything. In fact, that's where the monsters live. And that's where the dance of the monsters, like when people just stay in these, I'm right, no, I'm right, no, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. Where all that comes from, and this driving feeling inside people and what I've now identified as the monster tracks. They are the things that show up in our life that bring our attention to, wow, if you're looking from a 10,000 foot or a 30,000 foot vantage point, you can go, wow, why do I do that? Why do I get my buttons pushed easily? Why am I offended? What makes me like on rails to be right? What makes me hate it when others do well and I suck? So the premise of this whole thing is, back when we were the only brain that we had actually functioning, the first one, let's say, that really started in its full glory, shining, is the old part of your survival brain, the amygdala. Because in our wiring, we are genetically wired to survive. That's our primary interest as human beings, is we need to survive. And so in that wiring is some stuff we didn't even sign up for, which is fear. Fear is an instinctual wiring in us, because the Pollyanna person that just, sat out on the meadow meditating, guess what happened to them? They died. Because back in the day, when it was hard to survive physically and when things were happening, that's millions or thousands or whatever your belief is about any of that, it's still developed over time to where, oh, it's the survival of the adapter, right? It's not the survival of the strongest or the survival of the fittest. It's those who adapt and adapt to their environment, adapt to the threatening. We're always on guard for the threats. It's just how it is. And sometimes we judge that in ourselves and especially others because, oh, they're so negative. Well, it is in our wiring to be negative to a point, okay? So how that showed up for little Kimmy was, and for you, in our old, because this part of our brain was not, it started to sort of develop over the years. This is why children, if you've got children nearby, that you might want to get them away from what I'm going to say, if it matters to you. But that's why children will believe anything you tell them. Children believe there's a Santa Claus because you tell them that. Children believe there's a Jesus because you tell them that. Children believe they are a blank sheet that you tell them, and they believe, and especially they'll believe it if it's accompanied by emotion, because it's the emotion that puts down the neurological pathways as we start developing our brains. It's emotion, and because we're wired with fear initially, we're not wired with happiness and optimism. That's not in our wiring, you guys. We have now a choice because this part of our brain doesn't develop fully. Some people say 23, some people say 28, but it's somewhere in that range. In fact, I know 40-year-olds I'm still wondering about. But it's because this brain, this part of the brain, that is an amazing tool. And over the course of discussions, we're going to talk about how we are not using, you know how they say we're not using our brain? That's bull. We're using every part of our brain that we are aware of and that we know about. We don't know this part of our brain, logic and reasoning. We aren't using it to the best we can because we don't know. And our fear modules, our fear pathways, our fear emotional pathways that were laid down are in our synapses. It's not a character judgment. It's not a moral deficiency. It is actually neurological connections that were made based on your wiring. And like, for example, let's just take the monster idea right now as it plays out in its primitive form. And that is, why do children become afraid of the dark? Eve, my 7-year-old who's staying with me this month, she was fine. She was born in the dark. She was dark in her womb, and it was dark. And it was dark when she was an itty bitty baby. There were no lights on. She didn't care. So what changed in a little kid's, the baby to that infant and toddlers, and sometimes even up to she still needs sometimes a light on? What changed? Because our wiring is wired like this. Whatever is unknowable is potentially unsurvivable. So you're going to think of it as unsurvivable. It's going to show up as a thought and an emotion, just like that. Oh, unsurvivable, got to avoid that. It's in our wiring. So when there's darkness or something unknown, your imagination, the fear creates uh-oh feelings. Then maybe you've watched a little scary movies, or maybe you've got a book, or maybe your parents, your older siblings are huge monster creators because they think it's so fun. But it doesn't matter. That's what creates the fear, is the thought of the unknown, is the fear. And then that's why looking under the bed, run into the roar, and we'll talk about that later. But as our brains are developing, We just sit more and more, we listen, the neurological pathways are laid, but the number one thing that we all needed and had to have up there with water and food and a diaper change was love. Love would be the word that we would use now because it's out of our language brain and our understanding brain. But as that primitive little brain was processing, it only processed, am I okay? So this is the number one human question everyone asks at a certain age of birth. And I don't know if you can see everything or just that. Okay? Am I okay just the way I am? I love this little picture. I love this little boy. And you know what? This is all of us, you guys. This is all of us. And it is still all of us. It is still all of us. Because the little Kimmy brain, neurological, emotionally synapsed connections, because we had no way to know we were okay. We had really no real logic. We had no logic. We had no reasoning. You couldn't look. Yeah, you did. Probably you did. I did with my kids. I'd go, I love you so much. And I'd look in their eyes and I'd go, I love you, I love you, I love you, right? And that's good. That fed those neurological synapses as well. That raised their oxytocin. That raised their the other one, endorphins. I mean, it raised their chemicals in their body when they felt that on a non-reasoning but an emotional level. That little baby, that child feels it. But they're also wired to not understand when anything else goes wrong. When mom and dad are arguing about something, when there's just a negative feeling in the room, because we're also wired to think it's all about us. We are narcissistic naturally. It's in our wiring. It's not a character flaw. All little kids, have you noticed that? Have you noticed? Just watch a little kid. Hey, what about me, me, and more me. It's all me. That's why children of divorce automatically assume it's their fault because they had no other way to assume it. They had no other way to process. And when you realize what we're all products of, I want you to just stay with us right now. Don't go to you as a parent because, oh my goodness, that creates all kinds of other monsters, triggers. But just think of you as a person and realize you and in order to go back and know what you thought and hear what I'm saying to you, guess what part of your brain you're trying to use this part of your brain to understand something that you decided with only a very archaic system of wiring, but it's all we had. So now you're going, that can't be true because I had great parents and they loved me. Yeah, doesn't matter. It does matter. I don't mean it doesn't matter at all. It does, it makes a difference. So if you were raised with a completely abusive, horrible, like children of really sexual or physical or verbal abuse, that is going to be different than a family that gave a love as best they could and love and love and love as much as they could. And so believe me, there is a difference in processing in the child, absolutely. But there is no hope that we processed incorrectly. We all processed incorrectly about our own worth, about who, because the minute there was some sort of a thing going on, whether it be a fight about money or divorce, or abuse or any of that stuff, because it doesn't matter to the little kid even what really happened. It mattered how their emotions processed it. And here's the premise of the book right here. Am I okay just the way I am? That was a question that was answered by a no, a resounding no, because of what I've just said. So for us as children, and everyone's going to answer this differently because we all, number one, were raised in different places in different specifically different by different specific parents, specific siblings, specific grandparents, specific aunts and uncles. All of that social community was important for us when we were little to be okay with if we weren't. Because there's studies done, okay, that show if a child doesn't receive nurturing and love, I'm talking about physical touch, I'm talking about eye contact, I'm talking about this oxytocin, the nurturing, our wiring says we will die. That's right up there with food and water. So if you did not get that, let's say, your dad wasn't a real lovey-dovey person. He loved you, probably. You can make up a new story now. We're going to talk more about how to use this part of our brain to do that. But let's say back in the day, he was busy or, whatever. You didn't get it. And even if you got it, you didn't get it because you did not have reasoning. You only had emotion. And unless your parents there was no negative thing around your life at all, maybe that person didn't struggle with this. But again, you made this decision about yourself. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually launch my poll right now because I love them. And what I want you to do is you're going to see here's the original lie. This is what I call the original lie that you adopted. And you know what? For what I'm doing with this work for me, it doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't matter when it happened. I don't go back to that would be maybe something done in therapy or whatever, which, is great if you've seen benefit from therapy. But most of the time in these matters, therapy isn't the answer because if they even go back to finding when this happened, specifically, there's not, being aware of when it happened doesn't really help know what to do about it, okay? So now, I'm not making a blanket statement there. Maybe you've had some really good results happen to you as a result of going back to your babyhood and childhood to find out some things. So believe me, I'm not judging that. But what I'm going to ask you right here is what phrase, and I'll launch it so you see it. Those of you watching playback, you won't see this or be able to participate. But what phrase best describes your lie? Because probably it's going to fall. Don't worry. But if it's not exactly this, here's the other thing I'm going to ask you to do. If it's not exactly one of these words, because words matter. Words matter. Like I had a conversation the other day with someone who said, I was telling them a story about actually one of my kids, and I don't think that he would mind, but he had it all wired that he's bad. And this person said, no, bad isn't my word. It was wrong. I was always wrong. So if one of these words don't hit you and you don't try to fit into one of these words, all I'm going to ask you to do is private message through chat here to me or question. You can use the question feature. I'm the only one. If you want to give me another word that fits better for you specifically, go ahead and feel free to do that. But if not, I've kind of hung out so like, for example, I'm stupid might also, they're all interconnected and it's which one shows up for you the most. I call it the silver bullet. You know how a werewolf, it only will get killed by a silver bullet. Which one of these words, if someone thought this or what you're worried about, the thing that strikes you the most, like, that's the word, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, hang on. Okay. So if you guys want to use chat, I'd prefer you not to use chat. Don't think, you're not a loser for using chat though, Sandy, don't hear it like that. Go to question and answer, because I don't want you to feel, too vulnerable or too exposed. Recording people don't see the chat either. So only those that are on live right now will see what is written, only hear what we're talking about. They won't see it. So good. So good. So because you put it out to everyone, I'll say somebody said I'm a loser. Somebody else in question said I'm always wrong or in trouble. Okay. So those are very good distinctions for you to know what the lie was for you. Okay. I think I only gave you an option to do one. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So I'm going to end the poll. And those of you who are on are going to see what the other people said. Those of you who are watching playback, I'll tell you, I'm not going to tell you who said it because it doesn't say right here, But the number one of what I listed so far was I'm not good enough. Number two was I'm not worthy or deserving. And number three is I'm not perfect. So now perfect can also, like the word perfect might be the word for you rather than I'm not good enough. The point of this, oh, sorry, I need to share results. There it is. So you guys that are on live can see what I'm talking about. So what's interesting about this is, and I'm going to get rid of that off my screen. This is a function of your wiring, of an old part of your brain that really, in all the research I've been doing and all the reading I've done over my life about the amygdala, we don't really have a purpose for it anymore. Okay, there might be slight instances where authentically your life is in danger, but for the most part, it has done. Now, it served a purpose back in our evolutionary times. It served a definite purpose. We're still dealing with, like, we just moved into a really old house, and we are dealing with the frustration and the life-threatening issues of old wiring, you guys. And you don't know that you can rewire. And of everything I want, this whole thing I'm doing with my book, with the events, with this group, these webinars, whatever, I want to give us, number one, an understanding, because awareness is important. Because just like what you guys commented, notice how I said, what is the lie telling you? It's not what the truth is at all. And on a big level, you know it's not the truth because you have a reasoning brain now. But if you go back to the little you and you start going, oh, that's how little me processed that. And we're going to talk about in future webinars, we're going to talk about what I call mental bloodhounds that have gone out, because it's, again, a function of our brain called your reticular activating system, that once you've told it what the truth is, what is important to you, once you've told it that, it doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, what do you mean? You're loved, you're great, there's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't, that's not its function. We're talking about wiring in your brain that just says, oh, that's true for you? Okay, then I'm gonna just keep going. I'm only gonna let in information that supports what you've told me is true, 3-year-old. I'm only gonna bring in that information. It's kind of like when you are looking to buy a car, right? And like we just bought a Subaru Outback. And while we were shopping, my husband knew we wanted an Outback, so that was it. But guess what? All of a sudden, I noticed Outbacks everywhere. Oh my gosh, there's one there. Of course, we live in Oregon. That's easy to do too. But let's say you were looking for a red Prius, right? The minute you've told your brain what you're looking for or what's significant to you, what's important to you, what matters to you, what is the truth, even if it's not something you want. You know, like another thing is, oh, my husband is he's a slob. He leaves stuff laying around. Now, is there some truth in that? Like real truth? Like he might even admit to it? Yeah, but guess what? You're only really going to notice. You're never going to notice the times he picks up his stuff, because your reticular activating system, part of your wiring of your brain, I call it the mental bloodhounds, are only bringing you what it smells. You've given it a smell. My husband's a slob. Go only find that evidence, and I'm only letting that in. So you're not going to notice the other cars on the road, and you're not going to notice the red Priuses until you're in the market for one, and then there are going to be lots of places you'll notice. Did they just start showing up, or were they always there? So these are some of the things we're going to talk about. So let me go to the questions. If you guys have any questions about this right now, please ask it in the question and answer part, because this is why we want to do these webinars, and I didn't want you to feel exposed and too too vulnerable right out of the gate to so if you have a question, start asking it, or if something's not clear, or what about this, Kim, or and maybe you want to talk about something about you. In fact, if you want to come on as a panelist live with me, if you really want, because I don't have to post this recording to regular Facebook. I probably will post this recording in our group. So if you're watching this from regular Facebook, you're not in the Monster in the Family group, you can chat me or give me something here to say, hey, I'd like to be in that group. But if you want me to kind of walk through some of this stuff with you live right now, hey, I love that. I love that. And I would, congratulate you on your bravery. I don't have time to do individual calls with people right now because I'm so in the throes of the book. While you're thinking about that, I have one more question, because today is a chapter in the book that I'm processing myself about, and I want to make sure I touch on, you guys are helping me with that. So let me ask you this other question, and you're going to have to just answer it in either chat or question and answer, which I prefer question and answer. Where in your life do you feel compelled, like you have this compulsion? You know that it's kind of irrational. You know that, oh, I don't know where this comes from, but my towels have to be folded this way or I go ballistic. Like that kind of compulsion. Or I have to like there is like, you feel like it's a do or die feeling inside you. In fact, it's a button. I would also call it a button that gets pushed for you. If it's not done, life is not okay. Okay. If you could send me some of those on, if you're listening and thinking about it and you don't know right now, no one else sees your comments and question and answer. If you process this throughout the day and something comes up for you, private message me on Facebook, would be great. And I'll check that occasionally. I try to stay off Facebook when I'm writing because it's too distracting, as we all know. But is there anybody that has something? Yeah. Okay. I don't ever want to appear stupid or unprepared. That is absolutely so you would be surprised how many people have that feeling. That's why they research everything into the nth degree. You might even reread your texts or your Facebook posts about 10 times. Anybody? Or if I have to get up to say something, I have to have my notes. This is probably, I don't want to say your name for those that are watching the recording, but who you all that are on the call know who said that. Susie Q, who said that. That's probably, my guess is, the #1 reason people hate public speaking is because the fear of saying something stupid is so, like I will die. It's a feeling of death. This is dying, you guys. The little Kimmy was like, oh, okay. So thank you for saying that. And okay, good, thank you. Someone just shared compulsion is time. I have to be on time. And I can pretty much, let me ask this question though to that person who shared that. I bet you married someone, is my guess, that is late. Can you answer that if yes or no? I don't have to be right about it. Oh, yes. Yes. Isn't that the way it goes, you guys? Isn't that interesting? And oh, this is so good. This is so good because, because this is why our lie produced this fear. Let me go back to the wiring real quick. The lie produced the fear that said, I may not survive this, okay? So your amygdala, its main job is to signal its only job is survival, fight or flight primarily. There's also freeze, but flight or fight. So that's the only messages you're gonna get. Little Kimmy only got a message that said, okay, so we gotta figure out a survival mechanism for you because you're gonna die. Alert, Will Robinson, danger, danger, you might die here, little Kimmy. We better come up with a survival, a way. So what we did is we looked around at our social community, okay, our tribe. You had to be okay in your tribe. That was part of living. And then you said, what was important in this world? For me, music was a huge thing. I was raised. I don't remember ever not being on stage singing, mostly singing, okay? And I never had a fear of public speaking because I knew I had to do, I mean, it never crossed my mind to be afraid of it. It only crossed my mind to be good at it. That's why you guys, how come you're so good? I don't know, but I'm just using it because it's there and I can. And it's part of who I am now. It produced really good results in me. That's the other thing, is the lie produced these, what I call the monster tracks, are survival mechanisms. And they're based in fight and flight. I've got to prove I'm good enough. I've got to prove I'm smart enough. I've got to prove that I'm okay. So lateness, probably whoever said that to me, was part of the equation. Or it might be tied to another lie. It's tied to a lie of, if I'm going to survive, I better be okay. I better be on time. I better be prepared. I better have it all together, because if I make a mistake, if I fail, if I'm not good enough, if I'm not perfect, if I'm, all of that equates to death to the little us. So interesting. So we came up with survival mechanisms. For me personally, it was special. Like, I don't know, and my word for special is going to be really different than your word for special. Just like your word for smart might be completely processed with different wirings, how that shows up for you. Because I'm not special in so many ways, you guys, but in the way that mattered to me, like, yeah, speaking and singing and, you know, playing the piano and leading, like, because part of that is just, I need to be a leader. I need to be, because that's just my special wiring. I needed to be pretty. Back when I discovered, listen to this, because I wasn't pretty. I was a tomboy. I was ugly. I had ugly hair. I had bad teeth. I had bad skin. And my sister was beautiful. See how siblings play into all this? And I knew I couldn't do anything about really my teeth. We were poor. She got braces. I didn't. We were poor. She tanned and her skin looked so good. I was all white and pasty and I looked terrible in a bathing suit and I had ugly teeth, but I could sing. So I remember probably when I was about 10 or 12, looking at my sister, 5 years older, going, I have no hope to win that one. I got to go do something else to be special. And so I developed lots of things to make me special. One of them was makeup. In fact, in my 20s, when I had this brain, and one of my discoveries of running to the roar of these principles is I was in a network marketing company back in my 20s, probably wasn't my first one, but it was an early one. And I had done well. Of course I would, because I had to be special. And I had done well, and I was, you know, on stage a lot. Of course I was. And people loved me because that was part of me being special. It doesn't mean that it's wrong or bad. Like, you can still love me. It's okay. Or you don't have to. And that's okay too now. It wasn't then. It wasn't then. You had to think I was really special. And my makeup was connected, I discovered, because at one event, I was doing this internal work at the time, you guys. And for some reason, something was connected with what would be the most horrible, death-feeling thing for me to do, to let go of this, we called it attachment to something that was driving you. And for me, it was makeup. And it came to me really like in a nauseating way. I seriously, you guys, I went down to like what we would, if you're in Take Shape for Life, you know, it'd be like a convention or something, but probably more like a regional event, because it was just a few hundred people. It wasn't thousands. But I remember going down dressed in my suit with zero makeup on. And I seriously, you guys, thought I was going to die. I was going to die. I was looking at, I knew where the bathroom was because I thought I was going to hurl. I was shaky. I was sweaty. I was doing this horribly painful thing at the time, which seems to most of you like so stupid. Like, why, Kim? Well, first of all, I look very different without makeup on. And I judged myself harshly. Like, I can't be special without makeup. I had a very strong emotional connection to that. See, it doesn't make sense, right? I wasn't using this part of my brain. And so I did it because I knew it had that hold on me. And the results of that are part of what I've discovered over this whole process is when you go run to the roar of something and you identify, I have to be special, and that is the lie. Number one, it's a lie. So by taking off the makeup, number one, people would interact with me and they'd kind of look at me like, something's different. Did you cut your hair? And some people even said, do you not have any makeup on? Oh my gosh. No, I don't. Like, that's the feeling I had. And I did it. And I didn't die. And I also discovered something else that it's going to sound very obvious and logical to you because you're using this part of your brain, is that had nothing to do with my being special. What? Really? Now I wear makeup, but I probably will sometime do a live or do something with no makeup and talk about the power that makeup had over me. See, I can still wear makeup, but I don't have to. And it doesn't mean anything. I have cut the cord of meaning because now I know that need to be special was all based on a lie of little Kimmy. Because I don't have to do anything. I'm not special and I'm not special. Both of those are the lie on both sides of the coin. They're the same lie. To be special, I have to prove it. That's my fight. That's that fight amygdala message. Prove it, Kim, prove it. Wear your makeup. Don't let him see. Don't let him see. And then the flight message was, oh, I'm not going to be okay without it. I can't go anywhere. I can't let anyone see me without makeup. Oh no, what would they think? And that's where I got my decision to do because I felt that feeling of fear inside me if people saw me without makeup. Okay, there's some examples for you. Okay, so somebody said in questions, mine is more others focused. I expect people to be on time. Oh yeah, oh yeah. In fact, those of you who think time is so important, you judge those. In fact, this is a huge conflict in your family, isn't it? How much you're late and how, if I'm, okay, all or nothing, unless I'm on time, I'm not going. Monster track alert. That's a monster track, all or nothing. I know it's my mom's fault, but yes, my towels have to be folded just right. Even the clothes are arranged in the closet. I feel you. I don't feel you. I don't struggle with that. But I know that's a huge thing, that the person who said that. In fact, yep, if you get help, you have to redo them because it has to be right. And they're wrong if they do it that way. And yeah, it's a big issue. It's, oh, you guys, this is so rich. It's a very rich thing. So we're going to talk about in subsequent, good, but you're learning because now you can learn. Now you can learn because you have this brain. Now you're using this brain for this is why you have it. Why have it? If you're still going to be hijacked by your 3-year-old old wiring, you're going to live in this house and hate it and go, it's cold. The alarms keep going off faulty because we don't need that amygdala anymore. But the wiring that amygdala created because of the fear, because of the lack of understanding, because of the lack of knowledge, the lack of logic, we are bound. We're still believing in Santa Claus and we're still wondering, where is he and why isn't he coming? Because he's so real. The fears and the truths that we adopted when we were that age, we don't realize now. We can investigate it. So here's your assignment. Those of you who are listening to this and those of you who participated, just for an awareness factor, start noticing, comment in the group, say, oh, wow, that was a really eye-opening exercise for me, and here's what's showing up. And chatter, I'm going to do a whole thing on how chatter plays into this. Chatter is your monster talking. It's that old wiring that keeps coming back. Oh, no. In fact, some of you didn't even talk in this thing because chatter told you you'd make a fool of yourself. You wouldn't say the right thing. In fact, those of you who overcame that to say it, hallelujah. You just ran to the roar on that level. But you've got chatter holding you back and it's saying, don't do it, you'll die, don't do it, don't. You know, the last time, it tells you every single time you failed. It tells you the mental bloodhounds are bringing all those evidences and chatter is telling you, better not do it. You know what's going to happen. And you don't even know that this is really what's underneath that. The bed. You don't know. So the part of this brain's job, and if you're willing to go through these, if you're willing to run to the roar and face these feelings inside you, because why do you want to face them? Why do you even care? Because of the tracks, the damage and the unhappiness and the frustration and the relationships, toxic situations that are the dancing of the monsters in your life. Your monster's dancing with your wife or husband's monster. Your monster's dancing. Like you got triggers going all over the place and you don't know, you just are justified in it because that's part of your tracks too. Like, no, it's her fault, their fault. It's not me. I'm trying, Kim. I'm doing my best. They're kind of got a, I think they even have a mental problem. Oh my gosh, if I hear that one more time, that is a huge chatter thing. They are mentally disturbed. And maybe they do, but it doesn't mean you have to react. It doesn't mean you have to have this toxic relationship showing up in your life. We're going to talk about tools to help you not have that, if you're willing to go there. Okay, you guys, I'm a little over. I was only thinking a half hour. Wait, let me go to question and answer real quick. Okay, chatter's huge. Yep. Okay, good. Thank you for participating. I so appreciate it. If you have something that is that you haven't shared with me about compelling, like you're compelled, you're driven, that feeling of being driven to refold your towels, driven, thank you. I'm going to use some of these examples, not with your name, but they're so common, you guys, and we all have them. So thank you for being on and share in the group. Okay, share in the group as much as you feel comfortable. Thanks for being on.